Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remus.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hope you had a great weekend. Welcome to a Monday edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk. We've got a lot coming up on the Winnipeg Jet games against the Penguins and the New York Rangers. We're going to talk NHL with Cam Gaunce, who's going to make his WST debut. I've had a good time enjoying his time on TSN Sports Center all this year, former NHL and AHL player. We're going to get his thoughts on Winnipeg as well as everything else happening in and around the league. The Hammer's going to join us. And listen, it was a wonderful, wonderful day for hockey here in the city yesterday and the weekend overall as the PWHL took over the city of Winnipeg, selling out Canada Life Center. Big overtime win last night, sending the fans home happy, and a great, great show of support for women's hockey here in the province. Liz Hudyma did an incredible job of putting together an event surrounding the game on Saturday, and of course was at the game last night, as was Connor. We'll talk about that, and Liz is going to join us a little bit later on today on the program. Just before we get going, welcome to everybody on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button and the subscribe button if you haven't already, and shout out to all you podcast listeners. Also do want to thank all the WST sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Of course, our friends at Princess Auto, the Winnipeg Jets, Coolbet Canada, Chud's Power Sports, Clean Line, Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, Manitoba Battery, St. Vital Dental Center, Rolly's Transfer, Uptown Alley, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and of course, our friends over at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Listen, we're going to get to everything right away. I'm going to bring in Connor, but many of you, I would imagine, already have heard of the absolutely horrible and tragic news out of White Bear Lake, Minnesota on the weekend, which was the passing in a house fire of our dear friend Jessie Pierce and her 3 young children. It is, unspeakably horrible thinking about the loss of 4 precious lives. But, for those of us here on WST, and I'm sure many listeners who absolutely loved when Jessie came on with us, this one just hit so hard. I found out about this yesterday morning through a confirmation, through a media chat. And, I went and I watched the game and was just sort of in a daze the entire time, and frankly, the entire day. People that know this program, and especially in and around when the Jets and the Wild are getting it on, Jessie was our go-to person in the Twin Cities. She was so much fun to have on the program, was incredibly generous with her time. And, amongst all of our guests that are regulars, most of the people are in media. I think I connected with her as well as almost any of them because she was so absolutely authentic with what she brought to the table. She had a passion for hockey, for Minnesota sports, for Minnesota teams that was pretty tough to match. And, I know that, and I got messages from a number of WST listeners when they heard the news after I put out that tweet yesterday of some incredible words from Michael Russo, just how devastated they were to hear the news. So it is with a real heavy heart we get going on with the show today. And, I was thinking last night as well as the PWHL took over, Jessie had been on with us to talk about the PWHL, the Minnesota Frost, and how it was going there in that first year last year that was so incredibly successful. She was a very proud woman in an industry that's dominated by men. And it was never anything to her. She really was, maybe this isn't a great term, but one of the guys in that she was a sports person and just had a special attitude and energy about her that has left everybody so shaken and empty with her loss today. So just on behalf of, myself and Michael and Connor and Lyss and everyone at Winnipeg Sports Talk, and I know so many of you listeners, It's hard to put into words how terrible we feel for her husband, who was out of town on a work trip at the time. And of course, our friends in the Twin Cities, our friends in the media. If you saw yesterday, the outpouring of grief on this was almost beyond anything that I've seen before. And it makes sense because anyone that came into contact with Jessie was, you felt like you were her friend, and you were really right away. So she will be incredibly missed. The loss of the children in this tragedy is just almost too much to take. But I didn't want to, we're going to, kind of do what we do and get on with the show today. But it is with her and her family in our thoughts and in our memories. And, just once again to everyone and there are so many people that have been affected by this. We're feeling with you and sending our love to everyone involved in all that. We'll miss you, Jessie, and certainly on behalf of everyone here in Winnipeg, there was no one that could talk about the Jets Wild rivalry like you, and it's heartbreaking that we won't be able to get to do it again. All right, as I mentioned, Jeff Hamilton's going to join us on the program. We're going to have a great conversation with Cam Gaunce. Can't wait to have Lyss on. Wouldn't be surprised if she rolls into the show with the Vince McMahon strut after dominating the weekend from start to finish. And, of course, a great appearance with our main man, Connor Hrabchak, who joins us now. Liz Hudyma's away for a few days. Connor, what's going on, pal? How you doing?
Doing well, Huss. I had a good weekend. I first just want to echo all of your thoughts. I thought that was very well said on Jessie. I didn't have any interactions with her personally, but always enjoyed her contributions to this program. And you got that passion, you got that sense, right? And one thing that stood out to me is just how many people have a story on Jessie. Like everyone's saying she's so widely loved and all of this stuff. Like everyone is sharing online about this awesome story that they had and how they knew Jessie. And that's how you know. Right. That's how you know that this is such a massive loss for all of us and such a heartbreaking, tragic story. So my heart goes out to the family. Just an unbelievable tragedy and definitely not what we wanted to hear on Sunday. But as for we'll try and move on as best we can, Huss, because that's all we can really do. And I don't know. We got a lot to get to on today's show.
Yeah, no, we certainly do. Just on that, I mean, Michael Russo's got a great piece in The Athletic. I said that she would probably laugh, and I knew a number of her close friends said that, wherever she is right now, she's chuckling because of just how many people and how widespread the thoughts for her have been. I mean, front page of ESPN, front page of CNN, Adam Schefter tweeting about it. I mean, she was so down to earth. Never in a million years, I think, would she have realized the impact that she had on so many. So, yeah, I mean, it is a real tough way to start a week and start the show. But I will just finishing up on this note. She did do the Bar Down Beauties podcast. We'll touch on this with Lyss later on, of course, who's carving out her own great space with us in the sports verse, but also, a real leader in women's sports, and obviously with what we had, with the PWHL here. But the Bar Down Beauties was the podcast that Jessie did with Kristen Krull, who was the Wild host. And they were hilarious. They had so much fun together. I just retweeted Kevin Seifert from ESPN's tweet, which her podcast partners memorialized her today. So a couple of the other guys that they did a lot of work with in the Twin Cities and Kristen. And I haven't had a chance to listen to this yet. I will after the show today. I figured that would not be a good way to go into this one today, already feeling the way I and so many do. But Kristen Krull joined Judd and AJ to just reminisce about the impact that she'll leave with all of us. So as difficult as it is, we will move on back to the toy department that we live in, Connor, which is the sports section. And the Jets roll out east, couple early games, an absolutely brutal start to the two games in Pittsburgh, down 2-0 before you knew it, and there's a lot of heads and hands, and they found a way to dig themselves out of it, getting to overtime, and subsequently a shootout in Pittsburgh, a shootout which we will certainly be talking about, and then did it again yesterday against the New York Rangers, this time winning in a shootout. So 1-1, 3 out of a possible 4 points, and not really chasing anybody down, but not really losing any ground on a snail race in the Western Conference. Before we dive into each individual game and some particular talking points, I mean, overall, what do you take out of the weekend from the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, they get 3 out of a 4 points, like you said, and that playoff line for Wildcard 2 Huss just seems to be falling and falling by the day kind of thing, right? Like it's projected to be 90 points, then it's 88, and now I think it's, Nashville's on pace for 87 or so points. So it just feels like the number that the Wildcard 2 team is going to get in at is going to be a very low one. And if your team playoff push, that is, I mean, the Jets are 29, and 12, and they're 5 points out in the West. It's a crazy, crazy year, and how many teams are bunched up kind of in this mix. But from the weekend, I mean, we'll get into Nyquist in the shootout, I'm sure. I shared my thoughts on Sunday morning, Huss, and it's now, Remus made it into a nice little sizzle reel, and it's now all over social media. But I think Eric Comrie is a big story for me coming out of the weekend, where he's now 6-0 since changing the cage on his mask from black to white. And his numbers in that time are awesome too. But the penalty killed in OT in the Rangers game. Comrie was fantastic. He makes 2 saves in the shootout. Throughout the game, I thought the Jets controlled play against the Rangers, but Comrie absolutely made some huge stops. And there was a power play in the second period too, where it was a barrage of chances and Comrie was great. So he's a big story for me coming out of the weekend, where, Hellebuyck, again, the Penguins are one of the best offensive teams in the league. So they put up 4 goals on him, and some of them, like Hayden Fleury runs into him, and there's some weird bounces there for sure. But for me, Eric Comrie and his performance on Sunday was a big story coming out of the weekend for me, Huss. I don't know what your biggest takeaway from the 3 and 4 out of the weekend was.
Well, listen, I mean, big picture, I think people know where I stand on this. I mean, even with the 3 out of 4 points, we're at 6.8% playoffs. So
right,
with the playoffs being so unlikely, put it this way, if they had lost both shootouts, it wouldn't have broken my heart, which got to some of the decisions that we'll make in the first one, which were interesting to say the least. But I got to tell you, I thought the game on Saturday, despite the dog shit start, was a really, really fun game. I mean, Pittsburgh's a heck of a team, and the Jets, to their credit, they didn't quit. We've seen this team get into terrible starts and bad situations, and it just kind of runs away with it, and that was that. And to their credit, they did not do that at all. A few things that I loved, and it was almost as if, I don't know, maybe they've been playing WST from last week into the coaching room or something, but a lot of the things that I would really been hoping to see one way or the other, win or lose, we saw. Listen, Dylan DeMello could not have had a worse start to that game. And deservedly, I think we saw a little bit of an accountability thing there, and he got his ass stapled to the bench. It had been Hayden Fleury before. Listen, it's easier to do with some players than others. I totally get it. But it allowed, with the return of Neil Pionk, to see both a steady diet of Pionk and Morrissey and Elias Salmonson and Morrissey, who I believe I said he was either on Friday's show or on Illegal Curve on Saturday morning. Things that I want to see for a consistent period of time moving forward. So listen, that was a good thing. It was nice to see Pionk get back in the lineup as well. I thought he had a real positive impact. And I mean, to me, that's the top 4 of the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, Elias Salmonson, I know he hasn't been here long, and a lot of people, we'll wait and see. Listen, this is where we're at right now. There's no one that's going to stand to gain more from playing those sort of minutes than Elias. There's no one more important for the Winnipeg Jets to get that experience right now than him. So I love that. The other thing that we'd been clamoring on, great to get Isaac Rosén. I don't know how much we're getting out of him playing with Jonathan Toews and Gustav Nyquist. So, and the other topic was, hey, can we get a bit more Morgan Barron? He's been the most productive of the centers, not named Mark Scheifele. Why don't we see a little bit more from him? Boom. You get Roseanne, you get Lambert, you get Barron on a line. That was really fun to watch. It was exactly what we thought. They'd have the juice of these young players getting in and really kind of being excited about these chances at a times when maybe some veterans are, dragging it a little bit at the end of a disappointing season. So I thought that was a real positive. So, I mean, of the things that I had wanted to see, win or lose, we saw a lot of it in the Pittsburgh game. And I'll tell you what, I know Hellebuyck wasn't brilliant early on, but I thought he sort of stepped it up as the game went on, made some big saves, and then obviously we got to the shootout. Now, I have to tell you, and I'm sure everyone has their own story about this, but as I usually do for the road games, get together with a bunch of my buddies, and we're watching the game. The sound's cranked. There was a pretty good crowd for the game. The audible gasp in the room when 14 came over the boards for the second shot was honestly one of the moments that I will just remember it. When I think back to this season, I'm going to think about that because it was. Yeah. And then the putrid attempt that followed it afterwards just kind of made it. I mean, it was a little bit of like, you got to be kidding me. And it kind of became funny. And again, I'm looking at this through the lens of the extra point, not entirely necessary. Like, I wasn't heartbroken to drop that point the way I would be if the standings were different and they were right there on it, because those points are crucial. So everyone's asking me, what the hell was that afterwards? And I, for the record, completely support bringing some other guys in. You'd thrown the stats out. The team was 1-11 in shootout opportunities this year. So you know what? Give some other guys an opportunity. And I can even wrap my head around throwing Taves out there. I mean, he's a guy that's had a lot of success in the past. He's still Jonathan Taves. Now, is he in the World Juniors in 08 or whatever the year is? No, but he's a guy that knows his way around. And again, this is penalty shots. This is different than a game. But Gus, like with where he's in with his one goal on the season, I mean, maybe it would have been kind of a funny like story. And Scott O'Neill, when he was asked about it afterwards, Connor said, well, it wasn't working. So we went to a couple guys that, had some success earlier in the career. At that point, after Taves was unsuccessful, I mean, I'm throwing out Brad Lambert at that point. And, based on the game that he had, I don't think there would have been any downside. I mean, some people were saying, oh, the tank's obviously in with the guys that they were throwing out there. And then the anticipation for the shootout lineup against the Rangers, like, who are we going to go? DeMello, Sandberg, Comrie? Obviously I'm joking, but I mean, yeah, it was a head scratcher. It seemed like they decided they were going to move away from the guys that were always getting the opportunities that hadn't done it. But then on Saturday, they go right back. Kyle Connor and Gabe Vilardi with the beauty to actually win a shootout and get that third point. But it's kind of hilarious that coming out of the conversation, like, I'm sure you had a few people at the event on Saturday that said, by the way, what exactly was that today?
100%, Huz. It was hilarious. The event on Saturday, which we'll get to with Lyss a little bit later on, was fantastic. But yeah, people come up and just, we get talking about the Jets and how the year's going, and they'd be, so Gus in the shootout, hey? And it would just be like, what was that, man? Like, yeah, I went on my long rant Sunday morning on Sunday Live, so people can check that out. But objectively, the funniest way for the Rangers game to end was the Jets going back to a shootout using two of their, like, the two players with the nastiest hands on the team, and Kyle Connor and Gabe Vilardi, and winning like as easily as possible in the shootout. It's like, yeah, doy. But anyways, that was where were you when moment, and not of the good variety, Hustler, when Gus Nyquist stepped onto the ice for the shootout. But just real quick on Brad Lambert too. He was one of the players that I was like, yeah, if you want to send a message and give it to another guy, give it to Brad. He's having a great game. I think that's another thing, Huss, where I did a Chud's Power Sports Power Poll, I think a week and a half ago now, things I wanted to see down the stretch. And like Roseanne with more skilled players was one of them. Lambert up the lineup was one of them. Morrissey Salamonson, which you brought up, was another one of them. And this weekend, I think that's a great point. Like you saw a lot of those things. And Brad Lambert had maybe the best game of his pro career on Saturday against the Penguins, his first career multi-point game. Sweet shot off the rush to give the Jets a 4-3 lead late in the third period. And that line with Roseanne, Barron, and Lambert, I liked in the two games over the weekend. They all bring an element of speed that they can play off of one another. Barron's maybe more of the digger below the goal line, getting pucks out. And then Lambert and Roseanne are the skilled guys doing the transition work. I like that line, and I want to see more of it going forward. And just wanted to mention Brad Lambert because he was one of the players I thought had a strong weekend that we're really watching down the stretch here, win or lose.
No, absolutely. I mean, and listen, I'm liking, like, I know we were saying, all these guys got to play higher up in the lineup, as we've seen over the course of his recall, playing at the time with Koepke and Barron, that line was getting a little bit more ice time. I mean, there wasn't they weren't playing like just fourth line minutes. It was right there with the Taves line and at times with the Lowry line. But it was hard not to watch, like, right out of the gate in Pittsburgh, knowing that, okay, these guys are going today. I think, and listen, I've got a lot of time for Koepke, what he's brought, and I thought that he had a real strong weekend, scored a really nice goal playing with Taves and Nyquist. But, I mean, they just made this trade for Rosine. This is an opportunity to get a chance to see a little bit more of him. And, listen, we know what Taves is right now at this point in his career this season. I think most people have seen all they need to of Gus Nyquist. We know exactly what he has done and what he hasn't been able to do so far this year. As long as he's in the lineup, I mean, you got to put someone with him. But prioritizing getting a little bit more, some more looks for Roseanne and Lambert, and more with Lambert and Barron, because Barron at the same time was a guy we wanted to see move up. Like, those three players in particular are guys that when we look to next season and wanting to have a different result, getting more to those three guys, if they're on the roster, are all big parts of it. So I appreciated what the coaches did on that. And even, and again, I'll just reset this. I'm totally in favor of not going with the same old guys in the shootout, which they had been doing without any success. As I said, the Taves, I mean, okay. I guess, you've got a reason to do that. And I mean, I don't doubt for a second what Arnie's reasoning was in that. Probably went and looked at the book. Okay, who's scored before in the shootout? Who's done it before? We really need a goal. We'll give it to some guys that have done before. That was one and done. We're not going to see Gus out. Although I did joke, watch 14 come out first against the Rangers in the shootout.
Oh, that would have been glorious.
But listen, they're looking for answers. It just was, it kind of compounded and put more of a spotlight on just how disappointing that he has been so far this year. But, on the positive side of things, regardless of the result of the game, I thought the fight that the team had to get back in when they were on the verge of maybe being embarrassed and blown out of the rink in Pittsburgh, and opportunity, ice time, and some results for some young players. I mean, overall, I thought a really good weekend for the Winnipeg Jets, and you can decide whether getting 3 of 4 is good or bad, but nothing's guaranteed when you get to the lottery and all that. Right now, this team, the guys that are going out there are still playing and should play like they've got a chance if they win hockey games. And they did exactly that. All that being said, going shootout against Pittsburgh and the Rangers on the road back-to-back is not going to be if you just continue doing that for your next 12 games, again, we're not going to be talking about the playoffs. So, we like some of the things that we've seen, like some of the coaching decisions, albeit I know a lot of people will focus on a shooter. But now, Connor, this team comes back, and this is absolutely a make or break week. The Vegas Golden Knights finally found a way to win a hockey game. They beat Dallas, very impressive win coming into the Peg for tomorrow's game. And then it's back-to-back against the Colorado Avalanche. So they got no more outs. There's no more mulligans. if this team wants to at all be talking about still being in the playoff picture, they pretty much have to run the table this week against a gauntlet of teams that they've had a tough time beating consistently.
Yeah, Huss, and that was the big thing we talked about coming out of the Olympic break was, okay, this is actually the easy part of their schedule coming right out of it. And they did pick up points in all of those games, but now you get Colorado 2 more times this year, Vegas 2 more times. You get Utah late in the season as well. You get Seattle and San Jose in games that might matter down the stretch. So this schedule is fascinating here. And I do want to mention too, I mean, we focus a lot on the young players because we're looking ahead to next year and all that stuff. You mentioned Neil Pionk. Great to see him back. I found it hilarious when he came back, and I think it was the first whistle that he was on the ice. He's already trash talking Anthony Mantha and giving him some jabs and kind of making things happen behind the play, that pest energy that Neil Pionk brings all the time. And nice to see Adam Lowry get on the score sheet as well with his 5th of the season, first goal in 24 games, if I remember correctly. I've liked that line, Perfetti, Lowry, and Velarde. I thought they controlled play against Pittsburgh. I've liked them going back a couple games here since Velarde went down to it. And it was nice to see Adam Lowry get rewarded because I think he's slowly been playing better here these past couple of games. So Adam Lowry gets on the score sheet. Nice to see that. And the Jets are going to need those players, Huss. If you talk about the importance of these games, the playoff push that this team wants to make, that's what the coaches and players are striving for. If they're going to do it, they're going to need Neil Pionk to play at a top 4 level. They're going to need Adam Lowry to play at a higher level than he's been playing at this season. So those are good signs for the Winnipeg Jets winning hockey games down the stretch. And you have guys like Elias Salamonson playing in a top 4 role and showing well. And maybe the young players can take more steps forward, which can not only help you this year, but next year as well. And Lambert and Roseanne and Barron and all that stuff. So I don't know, lots of like coming out of the weekend, even though, and the pushback too, down 2-0. You mentioned it to the Penguins. DeMello gets benched. I was sitting there thinking this game is entirely over. Pittsburgh is a good team. You put yourself in a 2-0 hole, pack it up, let's go to New York kind of thing. But no, they fought back and made it a very entertaining and chaotic game. So fun weekend for the Winnipeg Jets. Lots to like and lots to not like, and a big week ahead with Vegas and Colorado twice.
Yeah, you mentioned Pionk. Pionk getting on the scoreboard, right back in it. I thought he had a strong weekend. And I'm glad you brought up Adam Lowry, because Lowry has had a really tough season coming back from the hip surgery. I mean, there's no two ways about it. And, I think everyone, for the most part, have been giving him a pass. We know how hard he works, what he brings to the team. And, it's totally. We all hope that he can get back to that with a full off season and be like the Adam Lowry we've known for many, many years. Regardless, when you're playing the amount that he is with the players that he is, to go more than 20 games without a goal, that's something that can really, really eat at a player. And I think it's even more challenging, Connor, when you're a guy with the C on his jersey that, while is not expected to be the Jets' top scorer, is expected to be a big contributor. And just to get that monkey off the back for Adam, I think was massive on the weekend.
100%, because we know the things that Adam Lowry does behind the scenes as the captain of this team and in the room and all of that stuff goes unnoticed. And on the ice, a lot of the stuff he does goes unnoticed too, with the penalty killing and the defensive play. And, that's his selling feature as a player. And the score sheet, I mean, it's not what he's there to do every single night, but with how this Winnipeg Jets season has gone, with Taves coming in as the 2C and not working out, Lowry's been thrust into that 2C role, which is a role where you have to produce offensively. He can't just be this shutdown 3C, which is where he thrives, or where he has thrived in the past. So you combine that, him playing a larger role this year and expecting to produce more offensively, and you combine that with coming off the hip surgery, it's no wonder that it's been kind of a tough season for Adam Lowry, where he's adding more to his plate while he's recovering from the hip surgery. So with a full off season, hopefully he can get back to that Adam Lowry that we know starting next season. And I think the best way for the Winnipeg Jets to help Adam Lowry to do that is to get a second line center, so that Adam Lowry doesn't have to be the 2C. He can be that shutdown 3C on a shutdown line going against the opposition's best, where we know he thrives in that role with the Selke level defense. So it's going to be a big offseason, and that's something that's crucial to the Winnipeg Jets' success next season, Huss, for sure.
Yeah, and just to wrap it up, I mean, Lowry obviously getting the goal, another brilliant game by Gabe Vilardi yesterday. The shootout winner, a goal and an assist, ties his career high, less games, hopefully can stay healthy for the remainder of the season. This was when he got hurt at the end of last year that kind of hampered him going into the playoffs. But we got it all from Gabe. We got goals, assists, shootout wins, more amazing Gabe Vilardi answers in the post-gamer with Mike at the end. I didn't get that for you with Remo away, but if you want a good laugh, just watch the Gabe Vilardi presser and see Mike try to get one more answer out of him. And Gabe, short and sweet, we'll say, for it. But we'll ask Mike about that when he comes on either way. But Gabe Vilardi been one of the real positive points of this entire season. Coming off that extension, he said that he hoped that this would look to be a real bargain, and he's been well on the way to making that happen. Coming up in just a minute, we're going to check in for the first time with Cam Gaunce of TSN, former NHL and AHL player, now doing a real good job coming in on SportsCenter. So we'll have Cameron, Lyss and Hammer still to come later on. But Jets, Connor McDavid's comments from the weekend on the pillow fight in the Pacific, the playoff races, and more. That's coming up next right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Hey, Bob, you hearing the news?
I can't listen to the news, Daryl.
This is different.
Oh, it's so negative.
Not this time. Manitoba's got these new jobs agreements. And when the government builds things like new schools and hospitals, they'll hire Manitoba workers first.
Really?
Creating good jobs with union standards and more apprenticeships for Manitobans. And we'll get rid of those out-of-province license plates on job sites.
Keeping our money working for Manitobans, eh?
You betcha.
Well, that's how it should work.
I knew you'd like it.
A message from Manitoba's Building Trades and Federation of Labor.
Spring into good times at Uptown Alley and eat, drink, and play at the most fun spot in the city. You'll enjoy 5-pin bowling, 10-pin bowling, a state-of-the-art arcade, and good times playing laser tag as well. And in addition, Uptown Alley features incredible food and drink options at their bistro. Pop down to Uptown Alley with your group or make it a party. It's the best place in Winnipeg for birthday parties for kids, teens, or adults, and an amazing spot for corporate events where you just simply pick your activities, any of your add-ons, what you'd like to eat, and the Uptown Alley staff takes care of everything else. For more information, go to uptownalley.ca, book a lane at 488-0000, or pop down and see him at 1301 St. Matthews Avenue. Got a move coming up? Lean on our friends and longtime sponsors at Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in moving and storage in Manitoba. Now into their 7th decade with over 60 years of experience, family owned and operated. Head over to their website at rollys.com to find out all about their services serving Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. In the top right corner, you can click on Request an Estimate. Use the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies, and then simply let them know when you're moving, where you're moving to, and what needs to be moved. And the friendly staff at Rolly's will turn it around quickly and get you a great quote to get you locked in for the white glove treatment that they've been famous for now for over 60 years in Winnipeg. For all your moving needs, make it Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in the game. Find out more and request an estimate today on your next move at rollys.com. Has it been a minute since you've been to the dentist? If it is, our pal Dr. Terry and the wonderful staff at St. Vital Dental Center would love to see you. They've been taking care of generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans in St. Vital for years, and have now moved into a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's with state-of-the-art equipment and convenient free parking right behind the building. They'll handle customers and clients from 6 months to 99 plus with a full array of dental services, from cleanings and checkups to surgeries like dental implants. Dr. Terry and the gang can absolutely do it all. We'll do it with a smile on their face and make your smile look even better than it's ever been. Go to stvitaldental.ca online to make an appointment. Pop into St. Vital Dental, get that grill taken care of, and tell them the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. All right, this is going to be fun. I've been looking forward to having Cam Gaunce on. He's been a great new addition to the TSN hockey panel and Sports Center hits. And Cameron joins us now. What's going on? Great to have you on Winnipeg Sports Talk for the first time.
Thank you. I appreciate being on. I've been a big fan of a lot of things Winnipeg for a long time. I grew up, I went to a couple tournaments actually in the summer in Winnipeg, left with some hardware. Actually, one of the tournaments we won there, we all got TVs, like small TVs. Instead of getting the trophy, you got a TV for winning. Safe to say that TV was in my room for about 6 years afterwards, because this way my parents didn't have to buy me one.
What has happened with the minor hockey community? We're giving out TVs. We want these kids to be outside, less screen time. That's hilarious, actually. That is a first. I've never heard of the summer tourney circuit that involves televisions for winning.
It was just unbelievable. Sorry, every kid was so excited about it because, again, I'm not being hyperbolic, but I played on one of the best minor hockey teams maybe ever in Ontario with Stamkos, a guy named Cody Hodgson, Michael Delzato. And that was our winter club team. In the summer, it was those guys, and then John Tavares, Alex Pietrangelo, so a number of very, very good players. My dad was the manager. That's why I was on the team. Let me get that straight. But when we went to this tournament, again, we'd won so many trophies before, so for us to get a TV, everyone was so excited. The parents hated it because we had to get these TVs back to Toronto from Winnipeg, which means we have to carry it with us on the plane, put it over top, and do all that type of stuff. But it was so cool for us.
The logistics meant nothing to the kids that had just won them. No. And man, you mentioned that group. I mean, over the years, just with so many NHL stars coming out of the GTHL, particularly groups like that. I mean, I'm sure you probably look back at times, even having played in the NHL, and think, that might have been the best team that I ever played on. I made it to the best league in the world.
Oh, for sure. Now, I need to correct you. OMHA was me. I was not a GTHL kid. I was in the Ontario Minor Hockey Association. Big difference if you're from the Toronto area.
It's all the same to us West.
Oh, all this. It's a huge dip. But anyways, yeah, this is what I mean when I talk about how lucky and grateful I am. And that's why I want to give back so much to the game of hockey, because I grew up with those players. It's not like I had to drive hours and hours to go and play with the best players or have the best coach. Like my coach in minor hockey coached with Mike Keenan at the University of Toronto, and then he was our head coach all the way up. Like he was offered 4 different NHL jobs from Mike Keenan, and then he also played with George McPhee. He was George McPhee's captain at Bowling Green, and George McPhee tried to hire him too. And that was my head coach growing up. His son is still one of my best friends. So I owe the game of hockey so much because this is just what I had around me. And I had all these people. So growing up, playing next to someone like Steven Stamkos, seeing what greatness really is, it's just unbelievable for me. And I still count my lucky stars.
It's kind of a neat segue into just before we dive into the Jets, which I know you've been paying attention to, the post-playing career job with TSN. How are you enjoying it?
I'm really enjoying it. It's been different than I anticipated. As you can probably tell from so far, I talk a lot. So getting the opportunity to talk about hockey, which I love, is something I've always thought about. But as anyone who is watching this or listening to this can attest to, I'm a no-name, I'm a nobody. So I never thought I would be able to get into TV as quickly as I did. Because if someone turned on a television and saw the name Cam Gaunce, if your last name isn't Gaunce, you probably don't know who that is. So I knew I had to kind of do a few other things in terms of preparation and making sure I was ready. So the transition into TV has been fun. It's been hard at times because you need to be able to get your points in quickly. You need to understand what you're saying and get it across in a way that other people can understand. And the other hard part for me, which I was a bit ignorant to, is when a team is struggling, and I predominantly cover Canadian teams, so most of them are, when teams are struggling, that means I have to talk a lot about negativity. And I'm not the most confident in putting down players individually or putting down too many things, even teams, too much, because I'm just not confident in my ability to do that. And until I get to that point, I think it's going to be hard, unless Canadian teams all start to be good, which would make things a lot easier for me.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because there's a certain team here in the middle of the country in Winnipeg that has driven us crazy all season long, and that you come off winning the President's Trophy, you have really high hopes and expectations, And needless to say, the season has not gone as planned. I mean, starting off after a 9-3 start, it went south in November. You lose Connor Hrabchak for a bit, then have an 11-game losing streak that kind of feels like it nuked the season. And yet here we are at the 70-game mark, and in a snail race that is the race for the second wild card, you look at the standings, you can maybe convince yourself that the Jets still have a puncher's chance. I mean, you've watched a lot of this team this year. I mean, just thoughts on the team overall and how they find themselves in the situation that they're in with the talent on that roster.
I think how they found themselves in this spot is just unfortunately a number of players underperforming. Like when you came into the season, you had expectations for how everyone was going to do. Now, I don't think anyone could have projected some of the seasons that they had last season. That would be a bit too much and a bit too optimistic for expecting a lot of those players to repeat that success. But still, for Gustav Nyquist to have the season he's having, for Cole Perfetti to have a down year, for Adam Lowry to only have 5 goals, I don't think that was in anyone's plans. I don't think anyone could have prognosticated that. So if you're getting those type of results, I'm not going to say efforts because this team always brings the effort. That's never a question about that. But if you're getting these types of results from players that you anticipated to have much bigger years, it's going to hurt your team. And then when you talk about hurting a team, the injuries that hit this team hit them at bad times, and they hit very important players. Obviously, Morrissey missed some time, Hrabchak missed some time, but I think Neil Pionk missing as much time as he did really hurt this team because he brings a lot. He brings an edge to his game. Obviously, he's a very good puck mover. He eats up a lot of minutes. Last night, I believe he had 25 minutes against the Rangers. So that's a very big part of their defense, and that's a big part of their team identity with how he plays. So when you're missing players of that ilk for that stretch of time, it's going to be hard when your team isn't performing at its top level. So for me, it's a mixture of underperforming, injuries, and then it seems like they're not defending as well this year. I can't specifically speak to the systematic aspect because I didn't watch a ton of Jets games last year. I can't say what they're doing different this year from last year because I've tried to look back and watch, but I've only seen a couple of the games. But I do know that they're giving up far too many opportunities, and if they're not getting historic goaltending like they did last season from Hrabchak, it just wasn't enough for them to overcome.
Yeah, the results as of late, I think, have been more realistic about where the team is right now. But when you lose 11 in a row and you bottom out in January after the midway point of the season at 32nd in the league, there is a huge hill to climb. And yet you look at, as I say, I referred to it as a snail race. It's like no one really wants to go and get it. The Predators, the minute you win 3 in a row, all of a sudden you're the playoff team right now. I mean, what do you make of just the schmozzle of teams that are still holding on for life? And obviously the Preds now with the inside track.
I like that word schmozzle. I'm going to try to use that soon. But the schmozzle of teams, as you said, it just seems like everyone wants, or I shouldn't say everyone, the league seems to preach parity. They want parity. They want everyone to have an opportunity to win. That's one of the main parts of a salary cap, though obviously it's for owners to project out budgets. But the idea around it was to create parity. And if you've got this type of parity, this many teams still engaged this late in the season, it also means ticket sales are going to be much higher for all those fan bases. Because if it's considered meaningful hockey late in the season, usually that's going to make more fans come out to games, so teams love it. But in terms of what I'm seeing, I'm just seeing a bunch of teams that, unfortunately, are marching to their own demise because even if they do make the playoffs, they're probably going to be playing Colorado in the first round, and that's going to be probably 4, maybe 5 games and out. Now, again, if you want to talk about the business side of things, that means 2 home gates. That means 2 home games where you're going to get all those ticket sales, all the merchandising, and all the other forms of revenue and streams of revenue that come with a home game. So that's not nothing. And getting especially a team like Winnipeg, getting back into the playoffs with a goaltender like Connor Hrabchak, you never really know. Like, he could steal games. We saw it, unfortunately, in the Olympics. We saw what he's able to do. So if a team like Winnipeg gets in, you get some more revenue, you get some important games for a kid like Brad Lambert, who of late has been getting a lot more ice time. Hopefully he's had a little bit of production in some games. Hopefully he's someone that can cement his spot in the lineup. someone like him can get some very important games and maybe learn from that and bring it into next season. Whereas some of these other teams, like in Nashville, with a more veteran-laden team, they're hoping to get in because they want to try to make some noise. They've got some new ownership there, and they want to see what this team can do and what the Nashville market is like when they're playing meaningful hockey. So for me, it's going to be a test to see which team can string together, as you said, a couple wins at the end of the season, whether it's deserved wins where they're dominating play or it's lucking out from some good goaltending, some lucky breaks. Either way, it's going to be interesting to see which team gets those breaks before the playoffs.
Well, you kind of laid out there the conundrum that fans are having right now. I mean, a lot of people have written this season off before. And still, if you look, even after this weekend getting 3 of 4, Money Puck has them at 6.8%. There's a myriad of things that need to happen, and they all need to happen, seemingly, for there to be playoff hockey in Winnipeg. The big picture, Cameron, and this goes back to, signing Jonathan Toews with the high hopes that just didn't really come, is that this team for a number of years has been desperately looking for a 2C, to play behind Mark Scheifele, to anchor that second line. And right now it's Adam Lowry. And as you mentioned, Adam Lowry just scored for the first time in 25 games. Now, he returned from hip surgery. I think everyone's hoping that he'll be much more back to the Lowry we remember next year after a regular offseason. But just your thoughts on the need for the 2C, the difficulties a team like Winnipeg has signing free agents to come and fill that hole, and what a high draft pick might be able to do for a team like Winnipeg that has been searching for this answer for a number of seasons.
The importance is it's almost bordering along the line of imperative in terms of how just needed that second line center is. Now, again, I was working the trade deadline. I was having to do a lot of hits on that. And the number of teams that need a 2C seem like it's longer list that needs a 2C than that don't need a 2C.
It's like 20 teams.
And that seems like the classic thing. It's, if we only had a second line centerman. But when you watch the Jets, you see it. Because, again, I'm going to use someone like Cole Perfetti. If Cole Perfetti were to be playing next to someone who is more offensively talented, listen, I'm not taking anything away from Adam Lowry. I think when things are slotted properly, he's one of, if not the best, third-line centers in the league. But asking him to play a more offensive role might be going a bit outside himself. So if you have Cole Perfetti next to someone, he just signed an 8-year deal, so that's out the window, but Nick Schmaltz, someone who's more offensively talented, who thinks more in that way, you're going to see someone like Cole Perfetti expand his game and improve and hopefully hit that potential that he has shown at few times in his career. So that 2 center spot is extremely important. When you look at the discrepancy in points for the Winnipeg Jets between their top line and everyone else in their forward group, it is a very, very wide gap. And that should be filled by someone who can play on that second line. Because what that also does is if I'm game planning against the Jets, all I know is I need to take away that first line. Easier said than done. They're one of the best first lines in the league. But you then load up your best defensive forward line, your best defensive defenseman, and you try to force them to play a hard game through and through. And then you can let everyone else kind of play as you will. Then you don't have to line match the rest of your line. Then you can pick and choose your most offensive group to go against essentially any one of the other groups of Winnipeg because you don't have to worry about them defending. So for the Jets, they need it because, as you said, they struggle to attract free agents. So internal development is extremely important. They need to draft well, which they have, and they need to develop well, which for the most part they have. Now, they haven't gotten anyone in the last couple of years with their first-round picks. Lambert and Barlow not quite playing as well as they'd hope. But there's still time for those players. And obviously just picking up Ishak Rosen, if I'm pronouncing that properly, that's someone who I played against when I was playing with the Toronto Marlies. He's got offensive skills that a lot of players don't. He is able to do some things in terms of his speed, in terms of how he shoots the puck, how he moves around the offensive zone that others just you can't teach. But it's about, can he do that on a consistent basis in the NHL? This comes back to my point. If you have a second-line centerman, you can put someone like him next to, someone like a Cole Perfetti next to. That's just going to help everyone around them. So whether it's using some of the picks that they have on players and then developing them, or if they want to turn this around quicker, using some of those picks and prospects that they have to then go out and trade for someone. Trades are available. Like the one everyone talked about, you can't trade for centerman, you can't find centerman. Well, the Dallas Stars a couple of years ago, well, more than a couple of years ago when I was there, they were able to get Jason Spezza and Tyler Seguin in the span of 2 years. So why is it that other teams seemingly can't do that? Or Colorado, they got Brock Nelson, Nazem Kadri, and Nick Waugh isn't a 2C, but they got 3 good centermen within the span of a year. It's not impossible. People just need to get creative. And Kevin Cheveldayoff is an excellent GM. He's proven that. So he's just going to have to get a bit creative if they don't think their internal development is going to be strong enough to find that second line centerman.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'll back Chevy a bit on this one. I mean, they had a deal for Brock Nelson, and he said, actually, no, I don't want to go to Winnipeg. I want to go to Colorado. And, you know, I mean, the one thing right now is how many players have trade protection. And it's almost everyone that signed a second contract, it seems. I mean, you look at the Edmonton Oilers, the entire team has a full no move. So it has proved to be quite problematic, which is kind of why I think from a Winnipeg standpoint, these final games of the season, regardless of what happens in the standings, you need to see more Lambert, more Rosine. Are these guys that can be part of the solution next season moving forward in a different spot? And, you know, I have to admit, I did like what Scott Arniel did. We'd been talking about it all last week. Like, let's find these guys, you know, in an opportunity to play a little bit more and a little bit more of an offensive role. And to be honest, of the centers not named Mark Scheifele, Morgan Barron has been the guy that's been driving it the most. So we saw Rosine and Lambert with them, and they were really impactful, and it was good for both of the players. So that's obviously the big picture. That's the story. We'll see what happens with Vegas coming in tomorrow night. Speaking of Vegas, Connor McDavid referred to the Pacific Division as a pillow fight on the weekend, accurately, and also had some pretty interesting comments glazing John Cooper big time after the game, and some took as maybe a ricochet shot at Chuck Knobloch. What did you think of what McDavid had to say, and just thoughts on the Oilers, who are looking to get back to a third straight Stanley Cup final and have a different result, but to be honest right now, look far from the team that went all the way the last 2 seasons?
Well, that's an understatement in terms of how they look. Like, because when you watch them play, when they played Tampa Bay, for instance, that was a game I covered, so I had to watch it very closely. And they had a good first period. They had moments in the second period. If they were to score on that 5-on-3, they had a 5-on-3 in the second period where they were down 2-1. If they were to score on that 5-on-3, it's an entirely different game. Instead, they don't score, which is a rarity for a 5-on-3 for that team typically. And then Kucherov gets out of the box and scores on a breakaway, his first ever shorthanded goal, which is a crazy stat. But anyways, that game all of a sudden gets away from them. And they just didn't have the ability to get back. And usually that's what you can hang your hat on, is if you get down because they don't defend well, because their goaltenders haven't been as good, they're going to go score goals in bunches. Well, that didn't happen because when you're missing Leon Draisaitl, arguably a top 5 player in the world, you don't have the same firepower. So if you don't have the same firepower, you're not defending well in your own zone, you're giving up too many chances off the rush, and your goalies aren't making the saves that are needed, that's not a good recipe for wins. So McDavid and what he had to say. Well, first talk about what he had to say about essentially the coaches, because he used his coach name a few times. I love it. Like, I want that. If I'm a player on that team, I've been very lucky to be around some of the best leaders this game has to offer, both in the NHL and in the American League. And I want a leader that's going to hold people accountable. And that includes the coaching staff. Because he talked about John Cooper when I was with Tampa Bay. One of the sayings that they had, or one of the things that they had in the wall, was good teams are led by coaches, great teams are led by the players. Well, he's leading that team. He's making sure that team understands. He has taken a significant pay cut. Like, we're talking tens of millions of dollars he's foregone to be there. So this means something to him. And he wants to make sure everyone else in that organization is doing everything they can to make sure they're getting to a Stanley Cup and then winning a Stanley Cup. And if he doesn't think that, he needs to make sure it's known. Sometimes internal pressure, having conversations with the coaches, having conversations with the team isn't enough. So you need external pressure. Because what this has now done is made everyone aware that he doesn't believe the systems are working properly, which they're not. And now everyone that's watching, I can tell you right now, I'm doing a day shift tomorrow, so I'm going to be on probably the 6 p.m. Sports Center or 5 p.m. for Winnipeg, there's a good chance I'm going to be talking about Edmonton's system that night and what it's going to look like, what changes they're going to make, what they have to do differently. And this is going to be point of topic for a long time because he called them out. We need to see what they do with it. And when you're a player on that team, you want this from your leader. You want to make sure he's holding everyone else accountable because now there's going to be uncomfortable conversations and there's going to be a tension at that rink that this team clearly needs. I don't understand why they have a feeling of comfort. Maybe it's because you have Connor McDavid on your team that everyone else can kind of, well, he'll take over. But they've got a level of comfort and a level of complacency that does not make sense with how they're playing. And this is going to change that really quick because if you show up to the rink after those comments, I can guarantee every one of those players and every one of those staff members are going to be on their toes, ready to do everything they can to have the best meetings possible, which sounds silly, but you need to have good meetings now. Because now every player needs to be aware of what you're doing, how you're doing it. And then when you have a practice, you need to make sure your practice is excellent because you need to make sure whatever you're implementing is done properly. And then come game time, that attention to detail has to still be there. So I love it. Even if their division is a pillow fight, as he called it, that's something, listen, it is what it is. That's the best way I can describe it because last year in the Eastern Conference, the two teams that made the wild card finished at 91 points. Yet the Calgary Flames missed the playoffs in the Western Conference at 96 points. And I didn't hear anyone complaining about the Pacific Division then. So there's going to be years where some divisions are better than others. And until the playoff format is changed, where it's just the best 8 teams instead of how things are currently working, it's not going to change.
So nuts, and the people in Calgary are probably having upset stomachs listening to this. 96 probably wins the Pacific this year. Yep. It didn't get into the playoffs last season. It is it is wild. Hey, just before we go, you mentioned, I mean, there's going to be some definitely uncomfortable conversations in the aftermath of these seasons for the teams in Western Canada. We'll see what happens with the Oilers. The Leafs are toast. Thoughts on the Hab? What a win on Saturday night. And the Ottawa Senators' chances of being in that final 8 in the East.
So I would love to see both Montreal and Ottawa get in. One, because I cover Canadian teams, but two, because I love the brands of hockey they play. They're two very contrasting styles. Montreal plays with so much speed. They're always trying to get on the offensive end. That means they've unfortunately given up a few more chances than they'd like, and their goaltending hasn't been great. But they're such a fun team. They play with a passion that has really resonated from their head coach. They seem all engaged, involved together. That top line with Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slavkovsky, they are a blast to watch. The way they're able to find each other in the offensive zone and complement each other with playmaking from Suzuki, board play from Slavkovsky, and obviously the shot of Caulfield and the offensive instincts he has. So I would love to see them, and I still do think they're going to make the playoffs. With the roster they have, with the home games they have left, because they have 2 more home games in this stretch before going on the road. And again, their road record this year is 18-8-8. They have a very, very good road record. So it might not be the Bell Center they're playing at, but they can still get wins on the road. And the Senators, I don't see how anyone can say they're not one of the best 8 teams in the Eastern Conference. They have been one of the best defensive teams start to finish. They've got a very good top group of players in the offensive side, if you want to say things, with Stützle, with Drake Batherson, who's having another outstanding season. Brady Tkachuk has turned it around a bit. He's had an up and down season. And Jake Sanderson being out, who I think is a top 5 or 6 defenseman in the league, him being out and having Thomas Chabot come and play how well and how much he's played. He had over 30 minutes the other night. I don't think I had 30 minutes in 3 games accumulative in the NHL. So the idea of playing that in 1 is insane. So how they've had him step up in his absence, I'm still very bullish on them. Yes, they are outside looking in, but how well they've played, the fact that they've now gotten above average goaltending, because for the year on the whole, I believe they're still historically low with how bad their save percentage is for their team. So if they can continue to just get above average goaltending, I think both the Canadians and the Senators can make the playoffs.
Yeah, it is going to be a real fun run. We'll see, where the Sabres finish, if Bones and the Blue Jackets can finish the job and get in. And obviously, I think it would, I think everyone would be in for the Sens to be in. The Habs look like they're going to be in, but again, it's so tight right now. Nothing. will be official until game 82. Cameron, so much fun having you on the program. Let's do this again sometime. Thanks for doing this, and keep up the great work on TSN.
Thank you very much. I'm welcome to come on anytime. I love the Jets.
Appreciate it, pal. Princess Auto is a proud sponsor of Winnipeg Sports Talk, in a lot of ways synonymous with Winnipeg. Headquartered here in the Peg, founded here in Winnipeg, and now serving Canadians coast to coast with the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. So while we wait for the Bombers to kick off, get ready for spring. Those projects on your list with great deals throughout the month waiting for you at your local Princess Auto, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West in the city, out in Brandon. And you can always shop online 24 hours a day at princessauto.com. Our friends at Chud's Power Sports are ready to turn the page from winter into spring, and bike season is right around the corner. Of course, we were there last week, got a chance to see so many of the cool bikes that are available, and the Terminator said that they've got some great new additions to their lineup, including Cove bikes, who make dual-purpose street and adventure off-road bikes. You can find out more information on that at the website at chudspowersports.com. We've also got really cool Suzuki street bikes and dirt bikes. And I was loving the look of the Husqvarna dual-purpose street and adventure bikes. And, of course, dirt bikes. With the price of fuel these days, I think there's going to be a surge in motorcycles this spring. So check out the best of the best right now at Chud's Power Sports, in addition to the boats, RVs, four-wheelers, and everything else to make your summer kick ass. Chud's Power Sports, the corner of Highway 8 and 231 in Gimli. Check them out online today at chudspowersports.com. Manitoba Battery is your local option for the best prices in batteries for all of your battery needs, whether it's getting your car and truck through the teeth of the Manitoba winter, or as we warm things up and get ready to have some fun, the best in batteries for motorcycles, ATVs, boats, and more. If it needs a battery, Manitoba Battery has it, and Donnie and his amazing staff will not only provide you the best in customer service that you won't see at the big box stores, they'll beat the pants off the big box stores in price. Shop local, save money, and get the best in customer service for all your battery needs at Manitoba Battery. Now with 2 locations in Winnipeg, Logan Avenue and Dovercourt Drive, they'll also save you time and deliver those batteries to you citywide, anywhere inside the perimeter. You can shop online as well at manitobabattery.com today. Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. I believe Hammer was at a sold-out Canada Life Center. I think, Adam, he's having a problem hearing me right now, and I'm not hearing him. So we'll get to Hammer in just a minute when hopefully that is all picked up. By the way, I just wanted to let everyone know, seeing all your comments about what we were talking about earlier with Jessie Pierce, and I'm not surprised that so many of you had those sort of things to say. She was someone that really made an impact with us on the program, and was quickly became one of our most popular guests, even if she was always coming in when we were talking Jets and Wild. And I'll tell you what, where the and I'll get Hammer to maybe speak to this, the part of her guests on our appearances, and we were always talking Jets and Wild, and obviously both taking those other sides, but I loved most hitting up Minnesota sports and talking Vikings with her, because there was a lot of people around here that were definitely on side with the Viking takes, and some of the sadness that they have gone through for a long time. I did, by the way, just on that, if you want to see just some more on Jessie, the Wild, Bill Guerin, John Hines, Captain Jared Spurgeon, all spoke today about that. You can tell that's really hitting the Minnesota community really tough today. How about Cameron Gaunce? Really enjoyed that conversation with Cameron. We're going to look forward to having him back on the program a few times before. You know, he didn't spend a ton of time in the National Hockey League, but certainly found his way to some pretty good organizations. The Colorado Avalanche, the Dallas Stars, the Penguins, and then the Tampa Bay Lightning, and did win a Calder Cup with the Texas Stars. So he's one of the younger rising stars over at TSN. So hopefully he's still got some time for us as he does it. All right, let's see how we're doing with the Hammer. Jeff, can you hear me? We get to go?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Good stuff. What's going on? I saw that you took in the festivities last night at the rink. What a great showing of support for the PWHL. We're going to talk to Lyss about it. But what'd you think?
I thought it was excellent. I thought it was a great event. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I was able to take in the festivities on the Saturday, which of course were the each team practiced at Hockey for All Center. That was packed, so you got a good idea that the game was going to be, obviously pack a punch. It was sold out leading up to it, but then to be inside, it was a whole different experience. I'd say my two big hockey was really solid. It was really good hockey. And the other thing is the environment is unlike any hockey environment you'll ever see. Like it is so, and I don't want to make it like, I don't want to use this as like an argument like traditional hockey audiences are bad. Like it's not a good versus bad situation. It's just anyone who goes to a Jets game. Like I've been, obviously I spend a lot of time in the press box, and for years I did that, but I've also attended a few games of, in the stands. And it's a generally hostile environment. Like the Jets games are like even when they're good, right? Like I'd almost argue that fans are harder on the team when they are good in some respects, right? Like and so you can hear people yelling out this and that and whatever. At these games, it's just all positivity. Like it's almost like I felt it was super unique. I think it's it's inclusive. It has all those elements, right? The PWHL, it's no secret. It's very inclusive, has a very strong footprint in, the LGBTQ plus community and a lot of their fan bases from that as well, because these are safe spaces for a lot of people to enjoy the game. There's an education to the game, right? Like the production, and part of that too is obviously this is a takeover tour, right? Like this is their opportunity to give a pitch to their league, to tell, fan bases like Winnipeg, they don't have their own team yet, to, what the league's all about and what they stand for and all those things. It was just a really inviting environment. And as someone who is there covering it, you can tell the difference. Everything, like the score's almost secondary. Now, of course, we're talking about two teams that aren't Winnipeg, right? So there's no home team here to get mad at the refs for, or to, like certain things. Now, there was obviously allegiances, and I thought what was really cool is there's a lot of young girls there. Of course, there's a lot of young girls there, right? And it's a really cool opportunity for them to watch their star players. It was a really emotional night for older women who especially those who competed high-end hockey, who didn't imagine this was a possibility, and it passed by them. So there was also a lot of young boys in the stands as well. So it was really cool to see the environment. And what I was going to say was, there's also people who are big PWHL fans in Winnipeg, right? Like we might not have a team here in the city, but there are people, like there were several signs out there. It seemed like every time they focused in on someone with a sign, was like, this is my fourth Montreal Victoire, game. This is my third Ottawa Charge game. Like, a lot of these fans here who have been craving, women's professional hockey league have followed the league. So I think it was a really cool experience. I'm glad I was part of it. And I really do think that when you look at leagues and how, their success and like what's behind their success and why this would be viable, I think this offers you something different. And that's why I would make the argument that this team would be different than, say, bringing in a WHL team that didn't work, right? And then, people talk about competing with the Moose, and here I am answering a question, Huss, that you're not even asking me of whether or not Winnipeg could have a team. But I mean, the reality would be if Winnipeg had a team, and I say this because I tweeted this out, I think it would be a hit just because of that environment. Obviously, it would have a lot to do with, True North and their involvement. We obviously have a couple sports teams here, and there is such thing as oversaturating the market. But just in my experience in that one game, and granted it was one game, it was really cool, really, really cool experience, and I think a really cool opportunity, for a league to bring something different.
I'm bullish. I mean, having worked with Hockey Canada and putting on that women's World Women's Championships in 2007, we saw that there was incredible sport for women's hockey here, and I'll tell you, I mean, I host the hockey.
Carla McLeod even referenced that from Ottawa, the head coach. She was on that team. She was talking about how the legacy here in Winnipeg, and she won the gold on that very ice, and how exciting it was, and how it was so cool to come back to that same arena all these years later and see that excitement again.
It was the most well-supported event that they had ever done. It still stands up amongst the best women's hockey events that have ever been put on, like internationally. But I think about I learned a lot about the women's hockey community through that event. And then I was just bringing up, I host the Hockey Helps the Homeless event here every year. And Winnipeg, this is a national event that goes across the country. And Winnipeg, the women in Winnipeg that are involved in it smash the fundraising goals and records of the rest of the country, and it's not even close, to the point where the Winnipeg model for the women's hockey is now what is trying to be duplicated in other areas of the country. And I have no doubt that it would be supported. I mean, there is definitely a logistics. The Moose are not here because that's a big money maker. The Moose are here because of the arrangement with the National Hockey League team, and I
think that's becoming less and less appealing, to be honest, with the organization. I don't think bringing a guy over from across the room is the same value as it was being sold years ago when the team showed up. That's another part of it.
I agree. So, I mean, I think this is down the road, but there's no doubt. And we had Christina Litz on and Desiree Scott.
Even True North. We know True North, and we know Mark Chipman's connection to women's hockey. It's very strong,
absolutely,
right? With his own kids, and he has a major role in growing the women's game, in this country. So it's and that's why I'm glad you brought that up, because I tweet this thing out. I think it would be a hit, and people think I'm reporting that it's coming in and nothing needs to change. I mean, those very things you bring up, Huss, are incredibly important. If this was to happen, what would that mean for the Manitoba Moose? I couldn't see both of those teams existing, right? I couldn't see those three teams existing within, the confines of Canada Life Center, right? But those would be, I'm just saying, and it's something that I think from a business standpoint, and that really is what it would come down to, is if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. I just see this being a unique opportunity, given the unique experience it offers.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this more with Lyss, who was very involved in everything over the course of the weekend. I'm looking forward to that. One other thing, and I mean, if you want to say a quick word on this too, I mean, it was a really tough day to have that game, such a big day for women in sport and women's hockey, coming off just the tragic news about Jessie, who was such a dear friend and a popular regular guest, even if she was coming in on the wild side of things for our rivalry chats and everything. I mean, I'm just still kind of at a loss for words about just the unspeakable tragedy that we're feeling here. We're seeing now. I mean, in the Twin Cities, the entire Wild organization spoke to it today, and I mean, I know you crossed paths with her in the past.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Jessie. I'm not gonna, pretend that I had a super strong bond with her. We certainly crossed paths in the several years I covered the Jets and traveled. Obviously, Minnesota or Minneapolis is right on there. Minnie's obviously a big rival and head there a couple times a year, right? So you do cross paths. It was hard to, I won't say ignore, hard to miss her, because she was so confident and so, as you saw in your several interviews with her, Huss, she just had a personality that had an impression on every single room she walked into. And I'll echo some of the things you and Connor said at the start of the show. Just some of the tributes. I've been, I don't know if it's age or if it's just the work I do now on a more consistent basis, but these things are just heavier for me than they used to be. And so, I'm not a big social media guy that's going to post out, a bunch of messages, but I certainly have reached out to some friends who I knew were closer with Jessie. And, I've been thinking about it nonstop for days, to be quite frank. And it really is, obviously knowing and understanding this job and understanding the community and understanding the Wild community, the media community and people who cover that team. It's hard to put into words. And it's just I've lived a little bit of that. Obviously, with Ted, this is a different situation, a lot quicker in a sense, obviously, and but final nonetheless. And it's just it's just another reminder. And I want to say unfortunately, but it kind of is fortunately, when I get another one of these reminders, like I don't need another one. I've already I live my life that way. I don't sweat a lot of the big things. I try to stay as present as much as I can. And so it's hard to see this news, to read on it, and then to be able to relate to some of her work that she's done, and the hallways she's walked through, and just not see the absolute heartbreaking tragedy that it is.
Yeah, and I mean, just to finish up on this, I mean, so much of us, we talk about her, as the hockey media personality, and the person would come in and have a great time with us on the show, always with a smile on her face. If you knew her through her socials as well, an incredibly devoted mother who loved her kids so much. And I mean, that side of it is, honestly, hard to even wrap my head around.
Well, and
I'm sure
even to that part about her being, and it's been talked about on several occasions, her, that confidence to come into a locker room. Like, that's not just like, there's a lot of things that need to happen in that situation. I give credit to the Wild organization for, lack of a better explanation, allowing that to happen, right? That's not as slam dunk as you would think. And, this would have been years ago, obviously. And so there's that part, but just her confidence to go through a pregnancy, grab her, her young child, and bring it to work in a locker room and do the questions and feel comfortable. Like, there's people who walk into locker rooms, Huss, who have been doing it for years, that are still nervous. There's people who walk into locker rooms who've been doing it forever that still don't have a shred of that confidence that Jessie would have. And I think that's the most incredible part of it all, is that she was a role model for and a pioneer in some ways for women's coverage, right? I mean, I think Amanda signed in New Jersey. Like, I've spent a lot of time reading tributes and messages, and listening to podcasts about her. And she just said, like, how powerful that was, and how, it provided a lens for women to let them know they could have it all. Like, it didn't need to be babies or a career. It could be both. And the last thing I'll say on this too is, and I know you've commented on it, like, my heart goes out to Mike, her husband, who I don't know, I couldn't pick out of a lineup, don't know him at all, had no relationship, but my heart completely breaks for the adversity that he has to go through right now. And so, I implore anybody who, has the funds, who support, whatever you got, if you got it, to find that GoFundMe and reach out and support, because those things, like, that's, it's hard to put all this into words, and including, what he's going to have to go through here, or what he's going through.
Four beautiful souls lost over the weekend, and it's hitting everyone hard. I mean, as hard as it is to move on, we do have some professional hockey to talk about with the home team, the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, back-to-back shootouts. You go 1-1 in the playoff time in the NHL. You get 3 out of 4 points. What? I said to Connor earlier, I thought the Saturday game was a hell of a fun game to watch. I mean, it started off in ugly fashion, but they battled back, and we saw some of the changes, the things that we'd like to see in these final games, whether it be the defense pairings, whether it was Rosine and Lambert playing with Barron, and Lambert having probably the best weekend of his career, which I think was optimistic. What were your takeaways from the 3-point weekend for the Jets?
Yeah, we're still in this will they, won't they, right? Like, it's just, it's obviously my takeaways, Haas, were the decision making in the shootouts. And I know you've talked about it, you've exhausted it already on the show, but to me, it was that game against Pittsburgh, I mean, yeah, you climb your way back, you find a way to push it to extra time. You lose, or you lose in a shootout with two guys. I think the general consensus is that Jonathan Toews wasn't a huge shocker. Although I still go back to this, like, yeah, we all know how great Jonathan Toews is at the shootout, but that was like 15 years ago, wasn't it? Like the 10. Like, I mean, I know he was good throughout the season and whatever, but like he hadn't played hockey for a couple years. But I can still understand that, and I'm not trying to feed a fed horse here, Huss, with the Gustav Nyquist selection next, but that's a message. Like that's a message. Like there's no doubt that's a message. I mean, how you want to, who it was to directly. I mean, you could easily make that to the two guys who lead the team in goals. I mean, Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. Because even if that isn't an intended message, what do you think those guys are thinking? Like, do you think those guys don't want to shoot in the shootout? Like, and save for any of those guys going to Scott Arniel at practice or sometime during that game and saying, hey, don't use me for a shootout. I'm expecting those guys want the puck on their stick all the time. So, regardless of, what I think was just a kind of shielding the real reasons in his post game. Sorry?
For the record, I applaud him for not going back to the guys that were a combined 1-11 in the shootout so far this season. Like, I think that it was absolutely the place where you would go to some different shooters. And I'm with you. I mean, the Toews one, and again, like, I think, I had some friends that were all over me about this thing. And I said, guys, like, let's keep in mind that we're talking about penalty shots here. Like, this is not the game. This is not 3-on-3. It's not 4-on-4. It's not 5-on-5. It's a completely different skill. And we haven't seen if they've practiced anything. So for me, everyone's on the table. But if you have a bunch of guys that have gone 1-11 and you can't win in a shootout, damn right you should maybe give some other guys a choice. It's just the fact that
I'm with you so far. I'm with you so far, Russ. I'm with you so far.
It is just the fact that the guy that you went to second, and I guess because he had, and I don't have a shootout record for Gus over the course of his NHL career. Maybe it was really good. It just comes at a time where he's played like the entire season and has one goal. Like, he's done everything except be able to score this year. So when you really need a goal, he's literally the last person that any Winnipeg Jet fan would probably think, yeah, maybe we throw it out him. But to your point about sending a message, like the one message, and this is the reason why I kind of thought it was going to be Lambert coming up over the boards, is that in that game, he had been playing really hard. And he'd started to, get a little bit of
confidence in his game
going forward. Exactly. So, I mean, if we're looking about a message, is that, hey, if you come out and you produce, you'll maybe get more opportunities. That would have been the message, I guess, that I would have sent. But to be honest, I think if we really want to dig down to it, this was a guy that was desperate to try to do something different and try to get 2 points. And based on whatever information he had to him, that he thought that maybe this would be an unconventional pick that would end up bearing fruit. And then, of course, he came out with one of the worst shootout attempts you'll see all year, which kind of just made it sadly funny in a way.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's just to touch on the Toews thing. Didn't he have goals in the previous 2 games? Like, it made sense. Like, he had recency bias. Yeah, he had recency bias in his favor as well. Gustav Nyquist has 1 goal on the season, has shown next to no finish all year long. Like, this idea that, like, are we to believe that he's going 10 for 10 on Connor Hrabchak in practice? Like, I don't know. Like, to me, it was overthinking. It was, again, sending a message, right? Because I don't think you send the same message if you send out Brad Lambert or you send out Morgan Barron. I don't think anyone's necessarily questioning that as much. The other thing too is, like, the question becomes, and I guess the answer is kind of obvious, if you will, that the Jets aren't mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. You can make an argument for what, or you can make an argument against Gustav Nyquist being even in the lineup, let alone taking a shootout. I mean, this is a guy that clearly have created some trust, or maybe this is like, I mean, maybe Scott Arniel's trolling management. Like, like the idea that you drop the puck back to Gustav Nyquist on the shootout is unbelievable to me, but that's happening. So, like, clearly they have a different version or a different impression of what he brings to the team than, armchair GMs, including myself. And so that's the decisions that they make. But it's just hard to justify whether you're going through, it's hard to look at his explanation as his career shootout percentage. That's like being like, well, where's the guy who had like 70 something points a couple of years ago? Like, it's a different player, a different time, and at an incredibly important moment. And so like, it's just, to me, like, it just seemed almost like, and I wish Scott Arniel was asked directly whether that was a message and didn't give him the opportunity to get it out, because I think we'd have more clarity to whether or not that was a message sent. And it would be a really interesting time to send a message when a message really doesn't feel like it's been sent all season long. To do it at that moment, at that time, when you needed that point, it just seemed like a stand that, probably should have come, much earlier.
Well, I certainly appreciated the message to Dylan DeMello that you can't start a game the way he did and stay in the lineup. And one of the other things that I was hoping to see was some Elias Salomonsson with Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk back in the lineup. And to me, that's the top four going forward for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, listen, DeMello has a lot of tenure with this team, and he's played a lot with Josh Morrissey, and I guess we'll see whether they go back to that. But looking ahead, as this team needs to improve, the start that Elias Salmonsson's had, the poise that he plays right now, the burgeoning confidence and more offense that he's creating in his game, to me, this guy should absolutely be in that position. And maybe it took a really ugly first 3 minutes to make it happen. But I mean, he'd been playing with Sandberg very comfortably in that, and they hadn't moved Pionk right there. I'm here with Pionk Morrissey as well, if they want to continue to roll with Sandberg and Salomonsson. But to me, on that weekend, they got the right four guys there moving forward, at least. And it'll be interesting to see if that continues through a weekend with two big veteran teams coming into the Canada Life Center.
And I think of it like this, Huss, and I think it's a really it's a very hard job to be a head coach in the National Hockey League. Obviously, you're compensated well, but I look at it like you're obviously you're a planner, you're an X's and O guy, you bring strategy, you bring identity and style and all those things. So you have to incorporate that element to your team, but then you got to be like kind of like a babysitter and a therapist and like a dad and like all these things. You got to deal with all these egos and personalities. And like, for instance, you bench Dylan DeMello, right? And like you have Dylan DeMello mentioning when he gets the jacket after the next game, thanks guys for pulling me up, right? And like obviously that's a move that Scott Arniel needs to make. And I'm not feeling pity for Dylan DeMello, but like he's not feeling great about his game, right? So you're managing his expectations, and it's just like there's a lot going on. And when you're not getting the results and the stuff that you're doing isn't working, you're not selling a product that is valuable. And so it's hard to kind of get everybody pulling in the same direction when the results aren't there. So I have a little bit of empathy for Scott Arniel, and you can see it written all over his face in some of these games, right? Like he just doesn't know what's going on and doesn't know why he's not getting certain, I don't want to say efforts, but certain results in the systems, and why they're lulling in certain periods and why they're doing, certain things or whatever. So there's clearly a frustration from him. And I mean, that's just natural for any coach who's on the outside looking in the playoffs at this point, especially when you have the expectations the Jets had. But I do think that's part of this, right? Like you're managing expectations, you're managing personalities, and you're managing a roster that, you probably noticed a little bit too late in the season wasn't able to do those X's and O's and identity things you wanted. And now you've kind of shifted over the last month here, and you started to get some results with a little bit more of a boring style of game, one that dictates less through speed and forechecking. So it's just, there's a lot on his plate right now. There's a lot to manage. And that's, that probably plays into some of the decision making and these split decisions, right? They're asked to make these decisions and, again, split decisions all, throughout a game. And some are going to sit well with players, some aren't going to sit well with players. And then you got to manage, like, we know this when Rick Bowness came in with the Winnipeg Jets, when and all those, swirling around the locker room, not being great. And he shifted that whole, leadership and stripped Blake Wheeler of his C. Like a lot of the issues at that time was there was a disconnect between the, the upper echelon players and the lower end players that, didn't feel like they were part of it and whatever. So, I'm not saying that's the case here in Winnipeg now, but those things exist, right? Those culture things exist, and everything feels really good when you're winning, right? Like Scott Arniel, since taking over as head coach, hasn't had a lot of adversity with this team until this year. This is the most adversity the Winnipeg Jets have had in years, right? And now that they're facing this, continued adversity, they're not seeming to find a way to get out of it. And I think that's, this is Scott Arniel's day to day, right? He wakes up every single day trying to find that answer, trying to find the right mixture that's going to get them through that day, that game, to get those 2 points. He wants to make the playoffs. I mean, that's obviously was their goal this year, and they're only 5 points away with it, with, a runway that's running out here, but you're not going to just throw the white flag. So it's, as much as it's easy to kind of be in this perch and say, well, why aren't they doing this or why aren't they doing that? I don't really envy the situation Arniel is in either.
Yeah, no, and I do wonder sort of, and again, this is maybe for next week, but what is at stake in these final dozen games? I mean, the things that are obviously at stake right now is where you pick in the draft. Can you possibly pull off a miracle and get into the playoffs? But I mean, I think there's a lot of players, some that we know are going to be back, others that are going to be playing for maybe a higher spot coming into training camp as far as expected. You still have to earn your spot and all that. But the coaching position in particular, I do wonder what's at stake for Arnie right now. Like, I don't think it is 100% or 0%. I think the possibility of him and this coaching staff is somewhere in the middle of that. And there's a lot of things that, won't be in their favor. There's other things that for him particular, being with the organization through Bones and last season, maybe gives him another shot. But I would love to be a fly on the wall inside the front office as to how they are viewing everything, not just from a player standpoint, but also a coaching standpoint, knowing that when you have a season as disappointing as this, there is an expectation that there will be some changes. I think it's obvious that the roster needs some changing, but I do wonder if that includes the coaching staff and what's at stake for them going down the stretch.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm with you in wishing that you were a fly on the wall for those conversations, because I think they'd be fascinating conversations. I don't think they're simple. Oh yeah, this year didn't work out the way it's planned, and dealt with this issue and this injury and this derailed us, and only if only we had this luck during this point, or if we did this thing differently, we'd be in the playoffs. And the question they need to ask right now, or the focus needs to be, is whether or not they believe this team is still in that window. Because right now, the moves that were made last offseason could have very well shut that closed. There's probably some people out there that are rolling their eyes and saying, absolutely, it's closed. You need to figure out if that's the case, or if you're able to find certain pieces to really prove that this year is an anomaly. I think that's going to be maybe a tough sell to the fan base. Obviously they're not going to run it back, because there's going to be, several of the free agents, the UFAs that they signed last year, are going to be back on the market and not back with the Jets. So there's just going to be change in general, but there just feels a lot more pressure this year, right? And so I think the other thing you need to focus on, or you certainly need to prevent, and it sounds obvious, but it certainly needs to be talked about, is preventing this feeling of this team seeping into next year, right? You mentioned Scott Arniel's role. I mean, we know a few different things here. We know that True North is traditionally loyal to their coaches. It takes a lot for them to fire one. Obviously Dave Lowry, even Dave Lowry wasn't technically fired. He was welcome to apply for the job. Remember that? And then, Claude Noel, even when he left, that was a very difficult decision for True North as well. And so, it would be interesting. It'd be borderline unprecedented, Huss, if they made this move, even though it would be a typical move for a lot of NHL teams. A lot of NHL teams wouldn't look at what, we often hear this business, all professional sports characterized, what have you done for me lately? Nobody cares that you won, a President's Trophy in prior years. They just care about what you did this year. And so, given where the Jets are and where they were expected to be, you would naturally think that would, put you on the hot seat and maybe even potentially lose your job. But we know, again, things are a little bit different here in Winnipeg and how they approach these things.
True. I think all that's true. There's no, it's not for sure.
It's not for sure.
Way,
the big thing is that you have a guy. You need a guy, you need to have a replacement. And that's the thing.
You brought up Claude. Claude got whacked mid-season, and that's the only time that's happened. That's certainly not happening this year. But Like we've said before,
Like, what do you
everything
think?
needs
What
to
do
be
you think
fully
about his
evaluated.
seat? What do you think about like do you think that this team could do you think I'm not necessarily asking if they should. I mean, feel free to share that, but like, do you think this team would do it, or do you like if I could give an answer to
Oh, I
that,
think
I
they
just feel
would.
less confident than any other year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in that, I mean, to be honest, I think that the over under on this one is probably in and around 50-50. So, I mean, I do think there's a significant possibility that they do go a different direction. And, some will say that's not fair. I mean, the guy's done a really good job while he's been here. And this year, there was a lot of things that were completely out of his control that sort of dove into it. But that is one of the most unfair professions that you can get into. And
Totally.
it is sort of par for the course. Hammer, great stuff as always. Liz coming. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this big weekend that she had in the event last night. I will look forward to seeing you at the rink over the next couple days. And thanks again for doing this. And great piece, by the way, on the in the paper on the weekend.
Yeah, thanks so much. And you know what? Liz did a great job this week. I know she put a lot of work into it, so congratulations to her. It was a terrific weekend, and she just made it all that much better. So see you next week, and looking forward to the hit. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, big guy. All right, there's Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press. Liz is ready to go. She will join us next right here on WST. WST would like to thank our friends at Cleanline Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk throughout the Jet season. When we're doing the Winnipeg Jet lines, we do it with the gang at Cleanline, who are the leaders in Winnipeg residential and commercial plumbing, heating, and electrical services. Your one-stop shop with over 40 years of experience. And like the captain, Adam Lowry has the back of his teammates, Cleanline has yours with 24/7 emergency services. So when you're in a jam at any time of the day, Cleanline has you covered. 204-500-2001 is the number. Write that one down, 204-500-2001 for 24/7 emergency services from the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. You can find out more online at cleanline.ca. Well, it's time to get ready for spring with our friends at Royal Sports, Winnipeg's sports superstore, family-owned and operated for over 50 years. And as we get the snow out of here, it is time to get back on the pitch. Royal is the soccer headquarters in town with more boots than you've ever seen. Not to mention great soccer merch from teams and nations around the world. Of course, we got baseball and slow pitch season coming up. They'll get you ready with gloves, bats, everything you need to dominate on it. Of course, they've still got hockey gear, snowboarding gear for those of you making the trip out for spring break, and the best selection of licensed merchandise for fans of the NHL, National Football League, NBA, and of course, Major League Baseball with Blue Jays season just around the corner. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. You got to see it to believe it. Get down there today and make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. We still do have plenty of games to get to for the Winnipeg Jets season, and with many on the road, no better place to get together with your gang to watch the squad than your local Boston Pizza. Ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and of course, Winnipeg Jets pick a player contest where you can win great prizes from BP every time the Winnipeg Jets score. So for the next game or the big game on the TV, head on down to Boston Pizza at your local BP location. Buckle up. And of course, if you are staying at home, you can get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, much more to come on WST. But first, a big shout out to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, what a night last night at Canada Life Centre for the PWHL takeover tour between the Montreal Victoire and Ottawa Charge. And it was a big weekend for our next guest, who kind of a full circle moment. I think one of the first things that Liz did with WST, I had called her. I said, you'd be a perfect host at Next Door for this thing we're doing for the finals of the PWHL in year one. And lo and behold, this year hosting a women in sport panel that was sold out and then being a big part of the game last night. Liz joins us now after a very busy weekend, including a great job on WST Sunday Live. Congratulations. It seemed like everything went well on Saturday before we even dropped the puck last night.
Yeah, can I throw you under the bus, Huss? That thing you just mentioned, that trivia night at Next Door a little while ago, was that my WST audition? Because that's what it felt like. I started working for you guys a little bit after that, and I feel like that was kind of like the bridge, the early stuff. You came by before the Seabears game, so I don't know if it was, but that's how I remember it.
The good ones take any opportunity they can. They knock it out of the park, and the rest is history. And I would say that really wasn't the way it was planned, but maybe it worked out that way. And needless to say, you've been killing it with us in the content side of things. And but also, I mean, I got to give you so much credit. I mean, with doing the Chell Chit Chat series, which is obviously something that was a real passion project of yours. It seemed like it all sort of came together on a perfect weekend to do it, with a panel of so many important and impressive female voices in the space getting together. And then, of course, the show last night that the league and the two teams put on as well. I'm sure you're still on a high.
Oh, yeah, it's been a crazy weekend for sure. I may not always come across as a calculated person because I'm a little bit all over the place on Sunday Live and content I post, but I'm a pretty calculated person. I'm paying attention to kind of what's going on and everything. And I knew that, scheduling wise, I was up for a new season. My podcast wanted to get something out, knew this takeover tour was coming. I knew that I was so grateful for these cool connections I had at the league, and I wanted to find a way to, continue to foster those. And I was very grateful for the Manitoba Moose Women in Sport Job Shadow program that happened to be this past weekend as well. Just lots of things kind of came together to make a perfect storm to do something to really build on all that excitement. So yeah, Saturday at Next Door Restaurant was just awesome. We had two panels. We had Danielle Bain from TSN, Annie Chipman, and Raquel Payne from True North sitting on the first panel talking about all kinds of fun things. And then the second panel, we had two representatives from the PWHL, Amy Shear, who's their EVP of Business Operations, and Rosa Authier, who is the manager of event operations. So she does a ton of the takeover tour stuff. And then Kenzie Lalonde, who called the game on TSN yesterday. So all-star panel, all-star group of people who showed up to have some fun with us and listen in and have some great conversation. And yeah, it ended up being a fantastic evening.
Well, it was a hell of a way to kick off the festivities on Sunday. I mean, I knew that this was going to be a hit, on a one-off, bringing in the takeover tour. We'd seen it elsewhere. And maybe it was just because I, was so involved in the World Women's when it was here working with Hockey Canada, but I knew the support and I knew how strong the women's hockey community is here in Winnipeg as well. So I wasn't at all surprised with what we saw yesterday, but it was nonetheless great to see. I mean, the atmosphere in the building last night and a very different type of crowd, which is what you'll see at most PWHL events. Way more female, a lot of kids, a lot of young girls seeing their heroes. And that's exactly what this league was created to be. What were your takeaways from not only the game, but just the reaction of the city to it and the vibe in the building of so many people thrilled to finally get a chance to buy a ticket and get their butt in a seat to support the league?
Yeah, it was really cool. And I think, like you said, we all knew it was going to be cool. We all knew it was going to be a great environment, but it's hard to really understand what that looks like in the building that you watch so many hockey games in already until you're actually in it. So actually getting to be there was pretty cool and pretty special. But I think the thing with this and with any other hockey league or whatever you want to talk about is that hockey is a sport that has kind of its core group of people that are just interested in the sport as a whole, whatever outlet that looks like. They want to go to games. They want to watch on TV. They want to watch different leagues. They want to watch different levels. They want to watch all kinds of different stuff. But then you have the variable of intersection that kind of changes up the way the periphery of kind of the rest of the fan base that shows up to a game kind of looks like. So, you have your NHL teams, you have XYZ different people that make up the rest of the entourage. And then when you have, your local junior hockey teams, it looks a little bit different. When you have minor hockey leagues, it looks a little bit different. When you have international hockey, it looks different. There's so many different types of variables that will change the makeup of what a population of a crowd looks like. But I just think it's cool that, you have your core people. There are so many folks that were at that game yesterday that go to every game that they possibly can at the Canada Life Center, right? Whether it's Manitoba Moose games, Winnipeg Jets games that are there for the most part, but then anything else that comes its way, they're happy to be there. But then there are lots of folks, and credit to Annie Chipman for shouting this out at the panel on Saturday, that was probably their first hockey game inside the Canada Life Center, even though they live here in Winnipeg. Maybe the Winnipeg Jets and, NHL hockey just isn't really their vibe, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be for everyone. So it's really cool to get to, open up the doors to that space and bring in more people, because the more people that we get involved in the sport as a whole, the better it gets. And there are so many ways that sport involvement, hockey involvement just makes people better. It makes community better. And getting to see that kind of on full display yesterday was emotional, and it was fun, and it was just awesome.
What was also really cool, knowing Jocelyn Larocque and having her on the program before, the pride that she had being able to play in front of probably half of the town of St. Anne. I'm not sure if you caught it, but she entered the building wearing her St. Anne Aces jersey, which was probably from when she was 14 or 15 years old. And of course, Katie Taben getting a chance to play at home. Both of the teams entered with T-shirts of like minor hockey cards of their teammates. So that was cool. But, listen, everything that the league has done with their steps, I mean, a brilliant first year as a 6-team league. Now we've got team names, team identities. They've got 2 other teams on the West Coast. There's a big plan for this. It's moving forward. I mean, obviously we've seen what's happened with the WNBA. They just got their new deal. The players got a big raise. I mean, there's a lot of really good things happening in women's sports. And, the WNBA has been around the longest, and it's sort of been, for a long time, it was simply propped up by the NBA. And I don't know if it was marketed properly. It didn't have that star power. But as things have changed, I mean, there are stars there. And for a long time, the hockey stars we only saw at the World Championships and the Olympic Games. And now, these women are getting a chance to be household names in their home cities, in the league. And the biggest thing is just the opportunities like Katie Taben's the perfect example. I mean, she finished playing and thought that was it for her. And now she's playing a starring role on one of the PWHL teams and, ended up earning a spot on the Olympic team. So it is all working. I'm sure this has been a big topic over the course of the weekend, probably touched on for Saturday, but with the response like this, like I'll paraphrase with this, or I'll just say this beforehand. I think it would take definitely some logistical changes, but I'm not sure that there isn't an appetite to do that. Based on what we saw, if it worked with the building, you think that there might be a future for Winnipeg as a actual PWHL franchise, as opposed to a spot we get to see a takeover tour once or twice a year?
I think there is, for sure, because people in Winnipeg love hockey, and that's, everything about, new sports leagues, women's sports leagues, all these different things. It's complicated and it's nuanced, but also it's simple, and people like hockey. And that's where the appetite is for every hockey league on the face of the planet to have investment and interest and support, is because people like hockey. So long as people in Winnipeg like hockey, there's space for it if it's tackled properly. For example, I think the biggest thing that, a lot of people have questions about is what the ownership would look like, and then also what the venue space would look like. The Winnipeg Ice is a huge example of what happens when you don't have adequate facilities to support, the teams that you're looking for. The Winnipeg Gold Eyes are also a fantastic example. They have the perfect facility. It's at a great location. It's the right capacity, because, we saw with Valor FC, when you're in a space that feels empty, the atmosphere really, really changes, and it really impacts the fan experience at the game. So having a space that fits what the team would need, I think, would be super important. Real estate is already really, really difficult to come by at the Canada Life Center. We see it with, concerts coming to town, that we can't always accommodate them here. Can't always make space in different artists touring schedules and stuff like that, because we have 2 pro men's teams playing out of this facility right now, and it's the only concert space that seats over 10,000 people here. And then, you have those Sea Bears in the summer and all these different things as well. So real estate is at a premium in the Canada Life Center. So the idea of having a 3rd pro hockey team playing out of that building, I think comes with a lot of complications, but I think it opens up a conversation for what things could look like for the Manitoba Moose as well, right? I don't know if it would be a huge problem for them to move to a smaller venue. Of course, having the business operations team, having their offices nearby is a very big selling point for playing out of the Canada Life Center. But there are a lot of moving parts that I think would have to be involved in terms of what other hockey teams look like in the city and what the league is doing and where they're at and what they need. But all in all, so long as there are people in Winnipeg that like hockey, there will be demand for hockey. And I think that, seeing this game kind of at the best of its caliber, which is what we see in the PWHL, there would be demand for that no matter what.
Yeah, to me, honestly, I think that it's really a question of real estate on the calendar when it comes to the building. I have no doubt that financially, if you're just talking from a business side of things, I think a PWHL team would far exceed the American Hockey League at this point right now. It is sort of, I think, a loss leader because of the want to have the team close and the advantages that come with that. If that changed, listen, I think that you'd probably, get into a better financial situation. It would obviously increase your costs on the American Hockey League side things from it. But I think if you went normally with a lower bowl capacity for that, I think you get close to, I think you could basically create a bit of a scarcity of a ticket as well. And then maybe like the Sea Bears for a massive game or whatever, open up the top and go through there. But overall, it was, listen, exactly as expected. Incredible vibes, incredible crowd, great show by the women. And, we continue to see that PWHL grow, and is great for Winnipeg to get a piece of that last night. And we'll see what the future holds. Hey, just before we go, it was, in some ways, it was heartbreaking for that to happen last night, with such a big loss in the hockey. And I say Jesse Pierce was, just such a big part of, the hockey community in the Twin Cities. But, if anyone had seen her visits on the program, and we'd have some fun going back and forth, Wild Jet stuff. She spoke to Minnesota sports, but she also came on the program to talk to us about the Minnesota Frost in the first year and how things had been going on with them. And I believe she was part of the Chell Chit Chat on one of the ones, was she not?
Not yet. We had some conversations about an upcoming season, but unfortunately never got a chance to record that.
But you'd, Sarah, but Liz, I guess that the memory and the heaviness of that yesterday was also sort of a part of, a lot of the people that know about, women's hockey and how important it is to have voices in those spaces. She just what a horrible loss. And I could not stop thinking about her throughout that entire game, frankly, the entire weekend. And even when we were watching the NHL stuff, but, we need champions like her in the space. And she was kind of a real trailblazer in a lot of ways, both on the NHL things and a loud voice that was front and center from day one of the PWHL going to the Twin Cities.
Yeah, it's overwhelming to read all of the positive endorsements that we've been seeing over the last couple of days about just her, the impact she left, and how she treated people everywhere she went. But for every woman that occupies a space in sport where she is the representation, or she is one of the only women in the space, which tends to be the reality of a lot of rooms that we find ourselves in these days, every single woman has the intention of leaving the space better than they found it. So when their time, if they retire, they move on to different endeavors and stuff, that they leave the place better than they found it. And obviously that wasn't where we were at, Jesse was at, we're ready to be there right now, but the impact is there nonetheless. And it's so unfortunate. And I've been choking up just talking about it when it comes to, her family, her kids, and just how devastating this tragedy is. But there is no doubt that she did leave the space better than she found it. And obviously, many more years were ahead of her of how much more she could do for the space. But in the short time that we were able to enjoy her presence here at the NHL with her Minnesota sports coverage, the legacy is there. And, that's really, really important. And I, hope that lives on through, what other women in the sport do, what Minnesota sports continue to do. And it's really special to see a lot of positive support in and around kind of the stories that people have to tell about her.
Yeah, by the way, that we've got the I'll pin this in the if you were wondering about that that GoFundMe, it's pinned in the chat right now if you wanted to check that out and support if you are able to. You, my friend, deserve a lot of kudos for a hell of a weekend. Continued great work. Really enjoyed the Sunday Live in between everything that was going on, and we'll look forward to catching up real soon on WST and, of course, on Sunday morning with Connor. Thanks so much, Liz.
You betcha. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks so much. All right, there's Liz Hudyma. We're going to get Connor back in here. We got to check on the lines for tonight's game. Only one game in the National Hockey League. We will do that in just a minute, but first, a big shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake. Making our finishing touches with our winner to get out to Aikens Lake this year. Don't forget, folks, if you're looking for a world-class fly-in fishing experience here in the province where you can be on the water in less than a couple hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is the spot. World-class fishing and even more world-class hospitality from the Terren family and the Aikens team. Booking now throughout the summer, over 75% full, so check it out now at aikenslake.com and get your bookings. And if you are looking for a great summer job, for you students out there, go to aikenslake.com and inquire as well about opportunities for the upcoming year. Get Connor back in here. And Connor, obviously we had a great visit with Lyss there for a minute. You took the show in. What a job your tag team partner did from a WST Sunday Live on. I know she was looking forward to this for a long time, worked really, really hard on it. And great for everyone in attendance to come in, hear from the women that were a part of it. I thought it was just a brilliant idea, and like everything that she does, very well executed.
Oh, very, very well executed. And yeah, big shout out to her. I saw a lot of the behind the scenes, the planning. Should I do this? How's this for the venue next door? All of this stuff. And everything worked out so great. The panels were so awesome. Even the events, like people were coming up and talking to her. The mayor, Scott Gillingham, was there taking it in. Like it was I don't even think she thought it could go that well, like if you hooked her up to a lie detector test kind of thing. But unbelievable event. And then the game too. I echo all the thoughts from Lyss and Jeff on the game. I mean, the atmosphere was incredible. Every single time on the Jumbotron, a different sign was being shown from people saying that this is their first hockey game or whatever. They're just so excited for the PWHL to be here. And the game itself delivered. I mean, it was a 2-1 game in overtime, lots of drama in the third period, and the crowd was so into it. And Jeff mentioned it earlier. There's no home team to like boo the refs. So it's not like a one-sided crowd. So when there's a break one way and a break the other way, you're cheering for both. You're just like taking it in. You're just so excited for both because hockey's awesome, right? So I thought it was an amazing weekend. And yeah, credit to Lyss for putting on such a fantastic event. She absolutely crushed it with that.
Yeah, the response and just the new people coming out, the young girls getting a chance. I mean, that's exactly what you want to have it. And
exactly,
I thought the game was good, really tight. We got an OT winner. I mean, as I said, it'll be interesting to see. And we'll hook up with some people from the league at the end of the tour to find out a little bit more. But I would not at all be surprised if the success of this and the momentum of the league probably has some people, certainly in the True North offices thinking like, okay, maybe is there a different way to do this when it comes to the Jets, the Moose, and a spot in our community for a PWHL team. The National Hockey League, a little quiet tonight. I'm in a very, very busy weekend. Hey, just quickly, what did you catch much of the Lightning Oiler game on Saturday night? And did you catch Connor McDavid's post-game presser where he could not have glazed John Cooper anymore, maybe with a couple ricochet shots at Chris Knobloch, and had maybe the greatest descriptor of the Pacific Division race being a pillow fight?
It's absolutely a pillow fight. We were looking on Sunday, and Boring Sean Monahan pointed this out to us on Sunday Live. Philly is 10th in the East right now. they'd be tied for first in the Pacific if they were in the, like, with 80 points. It's absolutely ridiculous. Maybe that changed on Sunday if Anaheim played. I don't know. But as of Sunday morning, that was accurate. And Philly would be tied for first in the Pacific. That was Sunday morning.
The Pacific
was the case.
so crazy. How about this?
It's so terrible.
And we were talking about this with Cam Gaunce earlier. Like, Calgary missed the playoffs last year with 96 points.
That'd be
96 points probably wins their division this year.
For sure. Like, it's a pillow fight, as Connor McDavid put it. Like, nobody wants it. It's unbelievable. It's one of the worst divisions we've seen in quite some time, where, I mean, Gaunce even brought up, or someone brought up, the goal differential for divisions. Maybe that was Dusty with you earlier on the Lock Shop Huss, where their goal differential as a division is minus 200 something. Like, they're just awful top to bottom. But man, the Edmonton Tampa Bay game, I was watching it because my buddy is an Oilers fan, lives in Winnipeg, went out to Edmonton for the game. And I was like pumped for him. I mean, no Draisaitl, but like, you never know with the Oilers, right? Like, they could win a game 5-4 and look amazing, or they could get pumped and blown out of the building. You truly never know with the Oilers. So I was locked into that game. And what Connor McDavid said after the fact about how Tampa's system is just so much better. They've all been playing together. John Cooper has them playing well. And of course, he's going to glaze John Cooper. He's played with him twice in the last year at Four Nations and Olympics. He knows exactly the level of coaching that John Cooper brings to the table night in and night out. And then he goes back to the Edmonton Oilers and compares it to the type of coaching that Chris Knobloch brings night in and night out. And yeah, like, I'm shocked he hasn't said something earlier. Like, this team, without Connor McDavid on the ice, they're getting outscored year after year after year after year. They haven't won the non-McDavid minutes in a decade. And at some point, like, he's going to get fed up with that. So the quote, like, I was like, okay, here we go. Like, it's kind of a dig at Knobloch here. And I wasn't shocked that it happened, because every Oilers game, I feel like, is they go down big. McDavid, Draisaitl, and Bouchard drag them back in it, and they miraculously win somehow. That's just how I feel every Oilers game goes.
You know, while we're talking about that game, and we get over to the cool bet lines, let's go to the NHL futures for a minute. And this is interesting. Here's where the Hart Trophy odds are right now. Nathan MacKinnon plus 115 or minus 115. Nikita Kucherov plus 120. McDavid and Celebrini are 15-1. I think with that performance on Saturday night, I think Kuch is going to get it. He's got a 3-point lead for another Art Ross trophy. The second half of the season hasn't been what that ridiculous first half was for Colorado. And there's another guy that you could consider in that mix for the best in the league, and Cale Makar on that team. You look at the drop-off from Kucherov to the next guy on Tampa, where they are in the standings, what they've done. I will admit, we were having this conversation throughout the Lock Shop, and I had Cool Bet up at the minute, and I threw down on Kuch at plus 120. I don't think we're going to see a number like this, and I would be surprised if it's got a minus the next time it's up on the board.
Yeah, and another thing too, Huss, like, obviously Tampa Bay's a loaded team, and when they're fully healthy, they're great, but they've undergone a ton of injuries this season. They haven't had Victor Hedman for a lot of the year. Braden Point missed time. Like, Kucherov's been there the whole time. And he's been so consistent regardless of who's in the lineup. And look, he's won back-to-back Art Ross trophies. Now he's in the driver's seat for a third straight. There was that run where I think he had 75 points in 33 games of this season. Like, he's doing things point-wise that haven't been done in 20, 30 years in the National Hockey League. And at some point, one of these Art Ross years, you're going to have to give Nikita Kucherov a Hart Trophy, right? Like, you're going to have to at some point if you're the voters, because Tampa's good every year. He's awesome every year. He's leading the league in points. I feel like this year could be that year. Now, I would pause on Celebrini if somehow the Sharks have really slid coming out of the break, but if somehow they go on a run and make the playoffs, Celebrini to me is right up there as well. And obviously McKinnon is still the odds-on favorite if Colorado finishes as the number one team and maybe McKinnon takes over the Art Ross race, then it's McKinnon. But it's a good race coming down the stretch here. And a lot of it will have to do with recency bias in the last 3 weeks here. So if Nikita Kucherov goes off and puts up 40 points in the final 15 games, which we know he's capable of, then yeah, I could absolutely see him taking home his first ever Hart Trophy.
Yeah, Cooch is minus 455 for another Art Ross. McKinnon 5-1, McDavid 15-1, which is sort of
Kucherov
crazy.
won the Hart
And
couple years ago. Not his first Hart Trophy.
the
It would be his second, I think.
he did win the Hart?
I think. I just searched it up. I think he won in 2019. Let me.
Oh, 19. Okay, sorry. I'm thinking about these last few years. That could be. Bottom line, I mean, all those guys have been there, won it. Like, when you look at the body of work this year, to me, Kucherov, it's hard to ignore. And being in Tampa, like, put it this way, if he was doing what he was doing for the Leafs or Toronto, it would be over right now. So, but a game like that, national TV, head-to-head against McDavid, he gets 4 points, McDavid -3, they win. Those are the sort of games that flip the scales. So my prediction is when these go off the board and they come back on later on in the week, you will see Nikita Kucherov as the favorite. So I'm in a +120. Let's just go there. All right, let's get to this game tonight. The Sens, -189 favorites in New York against the Rangers. Rangers +158. We saw New York yesterday. They're playing some younger guys. They are one of the worst teams in the league, as you can see in the neighborhood that they play in. The Sens are now getting some saves. Even if it's average goaltending, it's kind of like the argument was that's all they needed. Do you like them tonight? And where are you at on their chance to make the playoffs right now, Connor?
Yeah, again, you mentioned it. It really does come down to goaltending for the Senators. They've had one of the worst save percentages in the league all year long. Right now, they're 4 points back of the New York Islanders, but they have 2 games in hand. So I do like the Sens tonight. The one thing that does give me pause is it's James Reimer versus Igor Shesterkin. So there's quite the goaltending discrepancy here where Ottawa could absolutely dominate this game, but still lose 3-2 in an overtime sequence or a shootout kind of thing, just because the goaltending is lopsided. But it's such an important game for Ottawa. It's a game that you look at the schedule, you look in a tight playoff push, and you think the New York Rangers are 28th in the National Hockey League. We need to beat them. So I think they're going to come out and really push. So I do like Ottawa tonight, regardless of the fact that the goaltending is pretty heavily in the Rangers' favor. But yeah, we saw the Rangers on Sunday, and they did not look good.
-1.5 for the Sens, so to win by 2 +133 total for the game is 6. Hey, one other question I'll put at you right now. If you had to bet, okay, let's say Dallas and Minnesota play in the first round. Who are you backing?
Dallas. I'm taking Dallas. It's going to be a 7-game series if we're being, I mean, like, yeah, it's going to be such a tight series, but Dallas just went on, like a 13-0-1 run, largely without Roope Hintz and Mikko Rantanen. Like, I think the rest of that team is really coming along. Their power play is so good. Wyatt Johnston just set or tied an NHL record for power play goals in a season with 23. Unbelievable. So I love Dallas's power play. I think that could be a differentiating factor. And I have more faith in Jake Ottinger than, I know Minnesota has 2 great goalies in Gustafsson and Wallstedt, but you can only play one goalie at a time, and I'm taking Ottinger over both of those guys. So I would take the goaltending advantage with Dallas. But it honestly might come down to who's healthier when the playoffs start and who gets a lucky bounce in Game 7 one way or the other. But if you ask me
Dallas
right now,
I would what they've
Dallas.
been doing lately. No Hintz, no Rantanen. You would assume those guys get back. I mean, Minnesota, because it goes Colorado +175 and then Dallas and Vegas at 5-1. I mean, the Vegas number is just that someone's going to come out of the Pacific Division. They would be favored. Oilers +850. And then the Wild are at 9-1. I think there will be an upset somewhere along the lineup. The big question is as to whether the favorites get through to the end. That's Colorado in the West and the Tampa Bay Lightning in the East. What else do we have tonight? We do have TGL final. Los Angeles GC Jupiter Lynx. I love the TGL. It is -147 for LA. That's where I'm on today. Jupiter's +120. Kevin Kisner's in for Jupiter. So it's Max Homa, Tom Kim, and Kevin Kisner. going up against Justin Rose, Tommy Fleetwood, Sahith Theegala. This one probably shouldn't be close, but I think what we'll probably do is put together a little TGL, NHL, and I do like the Raptors tonight, minus 12.5. Oh, it's down to minus 10.5 now. Perfect. Against the Jazz. So we're going to go 3-sporter today if you're looking for a play. The LA and TGL, Ottawa and NHL, Raptors minus 10.5 against the Jazz, plus 391. So we will lock that in. And I do have to give a big shout out to our guy, Pat Mayo. Pat, where you find the WST specials in the exclusive. Pat had a couple last week, and one of them I put a sprinkle on. Canadian AJ Ewert to be top Canadian at the event at 17-1. He went 4 under on the back 9 in round 4 at the Valspar to catch and pass Corey Connors. So that was a beauty. And tomorrow on the program, we're going to get Pat and Jake in, and we're going to do a preview of Major League Baseball and our favorite futures for the Blue Jays and the upcoming season. I am so fired up, Connor. You know, the first game of the Major League Baseball regular season is Wednesday night and opening day Thursday. We're back.
We're back. We're back. Baseball is the best for that, right? You know, like if you're dedicated and locked into baseball, they play every single day. So you don't have to, from Wednesday until September, October, you don't have to worry. They're on basically every single day. There'll only be a handful of off days. So I'm looking forward to it as well. Still not over the heartbreak of that Game 7, but the Jays are going to be good this year. You look at the odds, it reflects that. They're top 5 in World Series odds, top 3 in AL winner odds. And it's going to be a tight race in that division, as it always is, with the Red Sox and the Yankees and the Jays at the top of it. So I'm excited for baseball season, Huss. Also, next weekend, March Madness. Not to pat myself on the back here, but coming out of the first weekend, our Winnipeg Sports Talk group, ya boy is first or tied for first.
I'm glad you reminded me of that. By the way, if you want to head over to Coolbet, check out those Major League Baseball futures. We'll dive into those with our favorite plays tomorrow on it. Yes, looking at the groups, the WST March Madness group, it is a tie at the top with 520 with Connor and Ruben Rebels. Look who's in second. Pat P. Greggy himself, just 10 points back, along with Sprats Gators, Black Dynamite, and Donnie Boy. Tough one for Donnie Boy, though. He had the Florida Gators. They lost last night. And then right behind that group at 510 is Jake at 510. Geez, I'm getting smoked by you guys, and I'm not that far back. I am in a tie for 16th at 470. I did not have Florida going to the Final Four, so maybe that will help me a little bit later on. But good stuff. Remus is 25th, so he's 20 points behind me. But yes, you can't win the bracket in the first week, but you sure can lose it. So we're all still alive. We'll look.
You just need your champion. You need your team that you have winning it all to make it through the first weekend. Because if they don't, that's just like
you're dead. Yeah, if you have Florida,
you're dead.
Like Donnie Boy, I hate to tell you, but R.I.P.
You're done.
You might still be able to stay in it, but at the end of the day, the points are so big, and someone's going to get the winner. Certainly, if it's either Duke, Arizona, or Michigan. That's what the majority of the group is. But yeah, no, fun night. I didn't watch a ton of March Madness on the weekend, but we'll get more locked in as we get into the Sweet 16s and the Elite 8 this weekend. And again, tomorrow we'll break down our favorite plays for the upcoming Major League Baseball schedule with Pat and Jake. Connor, great stuff as always. I look forward to breaking it down with you tomorrow. And, of course, you'll be freshly back from the morning skate before the Jets and the Vegas Golden Knights. So we'll look forward to hearing from Coach Arneal and more as the Jets get back on the ice. So tomorrow we'll have that. Brandon Rowicki's going to jump on. And Pat, Jake, myself, maybe a few picks from Connor as well with our favorite MLB plays and futures for the upcoming Major League Baseball season, which gets going in just a couple of days. That's going to do it for us, gang. Thanks very much to Adam for getting us on and off the air today. Great stuff with Cam Gaunce, who joined us, Jeff Hamilton, Liz Hudyma, and of course, Connor Hrabchak. Appreciate all of you for joining us today. Have a great Monday night, and make sure to join us 1 p.m. tomorrow. Get ready for the Jets and Vegas Golden Knights tomorrow at Canada Life Center right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Thanks to all of our sponsors that make the show happen each and every day, and all of you for making us a part of yours. Catch you tomorrow at 1.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.